I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow. Throughout her life, Her Majesty the Queen, my beloved mother, was an inspiration, an example to me and to all my family.
In a jaw-dropping moment at Windsor Castle, President Donald Trump made a shocking statement that left King Charles visibly shaken. As Trump spoke the name of Princess Diana, the room fell silent. For the first time in years, the royal family was forced to confront a painful truth, one that had haunted Charles since Diana's tragic death. What did Trump say that made the king break down? In September 2025, former President Donald Trump arrived for a second state visit to the United Kingdom.
And the king knew every single person and every single company, and some of them had bad names like XYZ-Q3, and he knew every one of them, or at least I think he did, because nobody was complaining. I was very impressed with that. But I just want to say that His Majesty has also raised a remarkable...
A historic moment that drew attention from both sides of the Atlantic. Accompanied by First Lady Melania Trump, the visit took place at a time when the relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom was once again under the spotlight. This visit, marked by several high-profile ceremonies, was not only a testament to the enduring special relationship between the two nations, but also an occasion filled with political significance. The visit included a lavish state banquet at Windsor Castle, a venue known for its rich royal history, where members of the British royal family came together to welcome the Trumps. King Charles III, Queen Camilla, and other senior members of the royal family, including Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, attended the banquet, sending a strong message of continued ties between the two countries. The British royals are known for their diplomatic efforts in maintaining these crucial relationships, and this event was no different. The presence of the Trumps in such an esteemed setting underscored the ongoing importance of this alliance, particularly in a world where global politics are ever shifting. As part of the visit, a private and deeply meaningful wreath-laying ceremony took place at St. George's Chapel, where Queen Elizabeth II is laid to rest. This sacred site, with its history intertwined with the British monarchy, was a fitting location for a moment of reflection during this high-profile visit. The Trumps' visit to the chapel was not merely a symbolic gesture, but one that demonstrated a deep respect for Queen Elizabeth's legacy. President Trump, who had previously met the late Queen during his first state visit, paid his respects quietly and respectfully. First Lady Melania Trump, known for her grace and composure, also participated in the ceremony, honoring the Queen's memory in a private and intimate manner. However, the most poignant moments of the visit came not from the formalities of the grand banquet or the public appearances, but from the more personal interactions between the Trumps and the royal family. The state banquet, while a grand affair, was not the only focus of attention that evening. Throughout the event, there was an undercurrent of deeper emotions, driven by the history between the royal family and the United States. Both President Trump and King Charles had played significant roles in shaping the relationship between their countries, and this state visit was an opportunity to reinforce the enduring alliance. But it wasn't just the ceremonies or the state banquet that would leave a lasting impact. As the evening progressed and discussions turned towards more personal topics, something unexpected happened. In the midst of the events, Donald Trump, who is known for his candidness, made an unanticipated comment during a private moment at the chapel. While the details of his comment were not immediately made public, it was clear that he had spoken of Princess Diana, the late ex-wife of King Charles. For many, this was a surprising turn of events. Donald Trump, a figure who had never been particularly associated with the British royal family, had suddenly mentioned Diana's name in such a solemn and reflective environment. The impact of this moment cannot be understated. For King Charles, who had spent much of his life grappling with the legacy of his marriage to Diana, hearing her name mentioned by someone as high-profile as Trump in such an intimate setting was likely a moment of emotional weight. Although Diana's death had been tragic, her legacy had continued to resonate across the globe. Her popularity with the public, her charitable works, and the way she transcended the boundaries of the royal family had made her a symbol of humanity and compassion. King Charles, though publicly maintaining a composed appearance, had undoubtedly carried the weight of their shared history, and hearing Diana's name again, especially in such an unexpected context, must have brought back waves of emotion. It's important to understand the context in which Diana's name came up during this visit. For many years, Diana had been the subject of intense media scrutiny. As a royal, she was expected to adhere to the traditions and expectations that came with her title, but she often clashed with those very expectations. Her openness about her personal struggles, her involvement with charity work, and her connection to the public made her a polarizing figure within the royal family. Her death in 1997 only heightened the mystique surrounding her, and the royal family, including King Charles, had to navigate the complex emotions tied to her legacy. While Charles had moved on in his personal life, including marrying Camilla, the shadow of Diana's memory remained a significant part of his life. President Trump's mention of Diana could be seen as a direct reference to the complicated relationship between the royal family and the press, a subject that had long been a source of tension. Diana had often been at odds with the media, and her marriage to Charles had been under constant scrutiny. Trump, who had always had his own complex relationship with the media, may have been drawing parallels between the way Diana was treated by the press and his own experiences. His comment in the chapel, though not elaborated upon, seemed to strike a chord with those present, particularly King Charles. For King Charles, hearing Diana's name again in such a context was likely a reminder of the immense pressure and scrutiny that had been placed upon her during her life. It was a reflection of the pain that he had witnessed Diana endure, as well as the deep personal loss he had experienced. Charles had been through much in the years following their divorce, including the media frenzy surrounding their separation and the continued attention to their personal lives. To hear Diana's name in the presence of the people he had been working with to maintain the royal family's image, especially in such a personal and intimate setting, would have undoubtedly triggered strong emotions. The mention of Diana by Trump, at such a pivotal moment during his state visit, further highlighted the ongoing impact of Diana's legacy on the royal family. For King Charles, it was a moment of reflection on his past, and perhaps a painful acknowledgement of the complex and often difficult relationship between his family and the public. The unexpected reference to Diana at Queen Elizabeth's tomb was not just a passing comment, but a reminder of the personal and public struggles that had shaped the monarchy in the years since Diana's death. In the following days, as the media covered the events surrounding Trump's visit, the mention of Diana remained a focal point of discussion. For many, it was a moment that seemed to break the royal family's silence on a topic that had remained largely unspoken for decades. Diana had left an indelible mark on the royal family, and hearing her name spoken again in such a setting underscored just how significant her presence still was, even years after her death. For King Charles, this moment was not just about politics or public relations. It was deeply personal, a reminder of a time in his life that had shaped who he was today. The state visit of President Donald Trump to the United Kingdom in September 2025 was filled with grand gestures and ceremonial moments, but there was one specific act during the trip that caught the attention of many: a quiet yet powerful tribute to Princess Diana by Catherine, Princess of Wales. This particular tribute took place during the state banquet at Windsor Castle, a venue steeped in royal history, and one that served as the perfect backdrop for an evening of high-profile dignitaries and solemn respect. Catherine, known for her elegance and thoughtful approach to royal duties, made the decision to wear a very particular piece of jewelry that evening: the iconic Lover's Knot tiara. This tiara had once been worn by Princess Diana and had become a symbol of Diana's elegance, grace, and deep connection to the British royal family. The tiara, passed down through generations, was a central part of Diana's royal wardrobe. To the public, Diana's wearing of the tiara represented her role in the royal family. but it also symbolized her personal struggles and her unique place in the royal narrative. In choosing to wear the tiara for such a significant occasion, Catherine was not just making a fashionable choice, she was making a statement. The tiara, although a part of royal tradition, carried with it the weight of history and emotion. Princess Diana had worn it to many important public events, including during her marriage to Prince Charles. It was a piece that tied her legacy directly to the monarchy, and in wearing it, Catherine was acknowledging the profound impact that Diana had on the royal family, even in her absence. The decision to wear the lover's knot tiara also came at a time when the royal family was experiencing significant public scrutiny. With the ever-evolving media landscape, the family had to navigate a delicate balance between tradition and modern expectations. Diana had been a figure who shattered many of the norms of the royal family. She was open with the public, charitable, and beloved by millions. But she also found herself at odds with the institution. Her struggles with the royal family, particularly her marriage to Charles, were widely documented, and she became a symbol for many of the challenges the monarchy faced in adapting to the changing times. Her tragic death in 1997 had left an indelible mark on the royal family and had forever altered the trajectory of the monarchy. Catherine, Princess of Wales, had long been aware of the complicated relationship the royal family had with Diana's legacy. While some members of the family had been more publicly reserved about Diana's memory, Catherine had always shown a quiet respect for her late mother-in-law. By wearing the tiara, she was subtly acknowledging Diana's place within the royal family and her lasting influence on its image, something that could not be easily erased. The gesture was not only a tribute to Diana, but also a recognition of the complexity of the relationship between the royal family and the public. As Catherine sat at the banquet surrounded by dignitaries, the presence of the tiara seemed to take on a life of its own. The piece, once worn by Diana in the most formal of royal events, now sat upon the head of a woman who had come to embody the modern face of the British royal family. Catherine, who had been thrust into the royal spotlight after her marriage to Prince William, had often been compared to Diana. Her approach to royal life, while rooted in the same commitment to duty and service, was decidedly more private. She was not as open with the public about her personal life or struggles in the way Diana had been, but she too had faced challenges in maintaining her own identity within the confines of royal expectations. By choosing to wear the tiara, Catherine not only paid tribute to Diana's style and legacy, but she also subtly acknowledged the difficult path that had been paved by her late mother-in-law. It was a quiet moment of solidarity, a way of showing that she recognized the struggles Diana had endured as a royal and the strength she had demonstrated in facing those challenges. The tiara, as a symbol, spoke volumes more than any words could convey. It was a symbol of Diana's beauty, resilience, and the unique role she played in changing the royal family's connection to the public. It was a reminder that, while time had passed, Diana's influence was still felt within the walls of the royal institution. For many in the room that evening, the presence of the tiara would have been impossible to ignore. It was a subtle but powerful gesture that spoke to the complexities of royal life and the enduring legacy of Princess Diana. In a family where personal emotions are often hidden behind the strictures of tradition, the tiara offered a rare moment of recognition and remembrance. While some may have seen it simply as a beautiful piece of jewelry, to those who understood the significance, it was a poignant reminder of the past and the family member who had worn it with such grace and dignity. In the midst of the grand banquet and all the formalities, Catherine's decision to wear the lover's knot tiara highlighted the ongoing impact of Diana's memory on the royal family. It was not just an acknowledgement of Diana's place in history, but also a reflection of the continuing evolution of the monarchy in the modern age. The tiara was a link between the past and present, a physical manifestation of the way the royal family had changed, while still holding on to certain traditions. As the evening unfolded, and the royal family continued to interact with President Trump and his delegation, the presence of the tiara added an extra layer of depth to the event. While much of the attention was focused on the grandeur of the banquet and the political discussions taking place, the choice to wear the tiara brought the conversation back to a deeply personal level. It was a reminder that, despite the public roles the royal family plays, they are still individuals with personal histories and emotions that cannot be easily separated from their duties. Catherine's tribute to Diana also underscored the unspoken bond between the two women. Although they had never shared a direct relationship, Catherine's quiet acknowledgement of Diana's legacy was a powerful expression of solidarity. Diana's life, her marriage to Charles, and her struggles within the royal family had affected all those who came after her. For Catherine, wearing the tiara was a way of embracing the complexities of her position and the family she had married into, while also honoring the woman who had paved the way for her in many ways. As the evening came to a close, the quiet tribute to Princess Diana remained a focal point of the evening's events. While the public may not have fully understood the significance of the tiara, those within the royal family, and those familiar with Diana's legacy, would have recognized the depth of the gesture. Catherine's choice to wear the lover's knot tiara was not just about honoring Diana's memory, but also about acknowledging the ever-present connection between the past and the present within the royal family. It was a tribute to the complexities of royal life, and a subtle reminder that even in the midst of grand ceremonies, the personal histories of the individuals involved cannot be overlooked. As the evening progressed at Windsor Castle, a surprising turn of events unfolded, one that would be talked about for days to come. The royal banquet, traditionally a moment of grandeur and spectacle, took on an unexpected emotional tone when President Donald Trump, during a quiet conversation with King Charles, spoke about Princess Diana. The comment, though brief, was loaded with significance, leaving those who were present, including members of the royal family, in a state of shock. The words Trump spoke were not simply a passing reference. They carried with them a weight that reverberated throughout the royal family, especially for King Charles. Over the years, the royal family had done its best to navigate the sensitive topic of Diana. Her marriage to Charles, their subsequent divorce, and her tragic death had left lasting scars on the monarchy, and the royal family had largely kept silent about the emotional toll her life had taken on its members. The press had often been the driving force behind the scrutiny of Diana's life, her marriage, and her eventual death. And though the royal family had learned to shield itself from the constant media onslaught, there were certain topics that still lingered just beneath the surface. President Trump's comment about Diana caught many off guard. As someone who had never been directly involved in the personal dynamics of the royal family, his words were unexpected. Trump had, over the years, made a name for himself as a blunt, no-nonsense figure, unafraid to speak his mind. In this case, it seemed that his frankness and tendency to speak openly had carried over into this rare moment of private reflection during his state visit. For King Charles, hearing Diana's name spoken aloud in such a personal setting must have been an overwhelming experience. Despite the years that had passed since her death, Diana's memory continued to affect Charles in ways that were difficult to ignore. Their relationship had been tumultuous, filled with moments of public scandal, private heartbreak, and, ultimately, separation. The public's obsession with their marriage had overshadowed the more personal aspects of their relationship. It was this unrelenting focus that had contributed to Diana's struggles, but it also weighed heavily on Charles, whose role in her suffering remained a point of tension within the royal family. Trump's comment, though not meant to provoke, brought all of these emotions to the forefront. It was a reminder of the unresolved tension between the royal family and Diana's legacy. While some members of the royal family had made peace with Diana's passing, for Charles, the pain of their relationship was something that never truly went away. His silence about their marriage, their struggles, and their eventual separation had been a form of protection, a way of shielding himself and the monarchy from further scandal. But in that quiet, intimate moment with Trump, the words spoken about Diana cracked open the carefully constructed walls that Charles had built around his emotions. It was important to understand the nature of the relationship between Charles and Diana. Their marriage, which had once seemed like a fairy tale, had quickly descended into turmoil. Diana, beloved by the public and seen as the people's princess, had been the subject of relentless media scrutiny. Charles, as the heir to the throne, was expected to maintain a dignified silence, a stance that often left him unable to fully support Diana during her most difficult moments. The media, of course, had played a significant role in their troubles, exacerbating the tensions between them and magnifying their differences. For Diana, the public's love for her was both a blessing and a curse, as it brought her attention, but also put unbearable pressure on her. Charles had always been seen as a more reserved and traditional figure within the royal family. His marriage to Diana had seemed like an ideal match, but as time went on, the cracks in their relationship became apparent. Diana's openness about her struggles with mental health, her feelings of isolation within the royal family, and her sense of betrayal were all part of the narrative that would eventually lead to their separation. Despite their very public divorce, Diana's legacy continued to loom large over the royal family, especially Charles, who had always been viewed through the lens of his association with her. When Trump spoke about Diana in that private conversation, he may have been unaware of the deep emotional current he was tapping into. The simple mention of her name carried with it a flood of memories for Charles. It was a reminder of the woman he had loved, the mother of his children, and the person with whom he had shared some of the most formative years of his life. But it also stirred up feelings of guilt, regret, and loss. Charles had been criticized for not supporting Diana more during their marriage, for not standing by her when the media scrutiny became too much to bear, and for not doing more to protect her from the pressures of royal life. These criticisms had followed him throughout the years, and hearing Diana's name spoken aloud in such a vulnerable setting only intensified these feelings. The emotional impact of Trump's comment was felt not only by Charles, but also by those close to him. The royal family had always been careful with its public image, and moments of vulnerability were rare. The monarchy had worked hard to maintain its dignity, even in the face of scandal and tragedy. But in that fleeting moment, Trump's words reminded them that behind the royal titles and the grandeur of the palace, there were real emotions, real people, and real history. The weight of Diana's legacy could not be ignored, and her influence on the royal family was still deeply felt, even by those who had once been so closely tied to her. For many, this moment marked a shift in how the royal family, and particularly Charles, would be viewed in the years to come. It was a reminder that the monarchy was not a distant institution, but a family with its own complex relationships and histories. The public had long been fascinated by the royals, but moments like this, when raw emotions bubbled to the surface, gave the world a glimpse of the human side of the monarchy. Charles's reaction, though not publicly visible, would have been an indication of the personal toll that his relationship with Diana had taken on him. It was a reflection of the deep sadness and regret that he had carried for so many years, even as he had moved forward with his life and family. The media, as always, would latch onto this moment, turning it into a spectacle. News outlets around the world reported on the surprising reference to Diana during the state visit, and the public reaction was swift. Some felt sympathy for Charles, understanding that the wounds of the past could not easily be healed, while others saw it as a sign of weakness or a moment of unnecessary drama. But for those who had followed the royal family's history, it was a reminder of the ongoing struggle that had defined Charles's life. It was a moment that brought the past into sharp focus, forcing both the royal family and the public to confront the unresolved issues that had long been buried. The true significance of this moment, however, lay not in the media frenzy that followed, but in the private, quiet reflection that Charles would have had after Trump's words were spoken. For the first time in many years, he was forced to confront the reality of his relationship with Diana, the choices he had made, and the legacy of that marriage. The silence that had long surrounded their relationship was broken, and in its place was a profound moment of recognition. It was a reminder that sometimes the past is never fully behind us, and the weight of history continues to shape our present. Charles had always been the epitome of royal decorum, stoic, composed, and rarely offering anything less than the polished image expected of him. But within the royal family, there had always been an unspoken understanding that the weight of duty sometimes meant sacrificing personal happiness, and Charles's marriage to Diana was a prime example of this. Despite their public marriage, the truth of their struggles had largely remained hidden from the public eye, and for years, Charles had kept a tight lid on his emotions. The way the media had torn apart their marriage and the tragic death of Diana had left Charles with a complicated legacy, one that he had never fully come to terms with. However, as Trump spoke Diana's name in the intimate setting of Windsor Castle, those carefully constructed walls began to crack. It was a rare moment where the royal facade faded slightly, and the human side of Charles emerged. For a fleeting moment, Charles was no longer the distant monarch or the son of the queen. He was simply a man confronted with a painful truth that he had carried for decades. His reaction wasn't one of anger, nor was it a show of emotion to be managed by royal protocols. Instead, it was one of sorrow, a quiet sorrow for a woman who had been so deeply misunderstood and mistreated by both the royal family and the press. This emotional reaction raised a lot of questions. Why had it taken so long for Charles to publicly reflect on his marriage to Diana? For years, he had been silent about his feelings, preferring instead to focus on his royal duties and later, his marriage to Camilla. But in that brief exchange with Trump, Charles's emotions betrayed him. His moment of reflection wasn't just about the past. It was also a realization about how the monarchy had handled the whole affair. For decades, the royal family had worked to maintain its image of perfection, often at the expense of individual family members' well-being. Diana, once seen as the glamorous, idealized figure who had captured the hearts of millions, had been thrust into a world of unimaginable pressure. The scrutiny she faced from the press was relentless, and despite her grace under fire, her struggles were often ignored or downplayed by the very institution that was supposed to protect her. Charles had been there, standing beside her through the good and the bad, yet had been largely unable to offer the kind of support she needed. As Diana's life took a tragic turn, Charles retreated further into his own world, focused on his duties as heir to the throne. But after so many years of silence, it was clear that Charles had never truly stopped feeling the weight of his part in her suffering. The royal family had failed to protect Diana when she needed it the most, and that failure haunted Charles in ways he had never truly articulated. His reflection on Diana's life, prompted by Trump's comment, was an indication that he was no longer willing to remain silent about the painful truths of the past. As Charles grappled with his emotions, the public reaction to his private moment of vulnerability was mixed. On one hand, many saw it as a sign of human empathy. They felt sympathy for Charles, recognizing that, like so many others, he too had been a product of his upbringing, one in which duty and tradition often took precedence over personal desires. Others, however, were more skeptical. They questioned why it had taken so long for him to speak about Diana, and why his words had only come now, so many years after her death. To some, it felt as though Charles was simply seeking redemption, trying to ease his own guilt by acknowledging Diana's struggles only now, long after the fact. For Charles, the moment with Trump was about more than just a public admission of past mistakes. It was about coming to terms with the lasting impact that Diana had had on his life and the monarchy as a whole. Her presence had forced the royal family to confront the reality of its public image, and her absence left a void that no one could truly fill. While the monarchy had endured, the loss of Diana had changed the royal family forever. Her influence was still being felt, both within the palace walls and in the hearts of the British public. Diana had been a symbol of compassion and vulnerability, and in many ways, she had changed the way the world viewed royalty. The conversation with Trump marked a turning point for Charles. It was as if, after years of silence, he had finally allowed himself to feel the emotions he had kept buried for so long. But it also marked a moment of growth for the monarchy itself. As the world's oldest monarchy, the British royal family had long struggled with its relevance in a rapidly changing world. The public, with their increasing desire for transparency and authenticity, no longer tolerated the distant, untouchable image of royalty. Diana had shown the world that the monarchy could no longer exist behind a veil of perfection. It had to evolve, to become more human, more real. In acknowledging Diana's memory, Charles was, in his own way, recognizing that the monarchy too needed to evolve. The rigid traditional image that had defined the royal family for centuries was no longer enough to capture the public's heart. It was a bittersweet realization. Diana had forced the royal family to confront its flaws, and her untimely death had exposed just how out of touch the institution had become with the changing times. In the years following her death, Charles had tried to forge a new path for himself, stepping away from the shadows of his past and focusing on his own family with Camilla. But he could never fully escape the legacy of Diana. His private reaction to Trump's comment was proof that the past would always have a hold on him, just as it would on the monarchy. The emotional toll of the conversation with Trump also had a ripple effect within the royal family. While Charles processed his feelings of regret, his actions spoke volumes to those around him. His public silence had often been interpreted as indifference or a lack of emotion, but in this moment, it became clear that he had been carrying the weight of his past all along. For those close to him, it was a moment of catharsis. It was a reminder that, despite the public's expectations of royalty, the human side of the monarchy was often hidden beneath layers of tradition and expectation. The royal family had long been a symbol of continuity, of stability in a changing world. But as Charles's emotional reaction to Trump's comment revealed, the institution was not immune to the complexities of personal relationships and struggles. The monarchy was not a distant, flawless entity. It was made up of individuals, each with their own challenges and emotions. Diana had been one of those individuals, and her life, her struggles, and her death had left an indelible mark on the royal family. Charles's moment of vulnerability with Trump had shown the world a side of him that had long been hidden. It was a side that reflected his own humanity, his own pain, and his own attempts to reconcile the past with the present. As the years passed, Charles would continue to navigate the delicate balance between his role as king and his personal history with Diana. But this moment of reflection, prompted by a brief comment, was a reminder that the royal family, despite its public image, was not immune to the weight of personal grief and emotional complexity.